welcome to our second part of our discussion about the GTA hack and Ubisoft, our latest industry news. Last time we talked about all sorts of things, actually, about sexism and misogyny in GTA, and whether or not female protagonists were a good thing or problematic, and how do these games evolve, really, and what impact are they having. So, yeah, if you haven't seen that session, then do check it out on our YouTube page. And one of the points that came up in the discussion was regarding a controversial hot coffee mod in the 2004 release of San Andreas, which apparently allowed players to access a previously inaccessible mini game that had been put into the game by the Rockstar developers as an inside joke, which allowed the main character to have fully closed sex with his girlfriend. And this got me thinking about Ubisoft. And we know that they've been plagued with all sorts of scandals recently regarding toxic behavior and all sorts of things going on within the company. But a new interview for La Presse, I don't know if I'm saying that the right way. It might be presse. I don't know. It's French, obviously, or Spanish. I don't. Anyway, it's not English. It's not a language I speak. And the Ubisoft CEO, Yves Guillemot. I should have practiced all of this before, shouldn't I? Has basically said that toxicity in the games industry comes from necessary friction in the creative process, and the suggestion being that that sort of internal harassment and toxic behavior is inescapable as part of the creative process. And I mean, this is a company that's been, dealing with sexual harassment, misconduct, bullying, so allegedly. So all of this stuff is obviously a big concern. And when you have the CEO effectively going, oh yeah, it's just all part of the process. It's a little bit like the stories of sort of locker room banter that we heard a few years ago. And I think, it made me think about this thing that the Rockstar developers had put in as an in-joke. It's the sorts of things that would make female employees feel really uncomfortable. And I think, anyone who isn't like, a cis white man, really, would feel uncomfortable by those kind of in jokes, those kind of that kind of banter, and is that really essential for the creative process, and is it really something that we want to be going on behind the scenes in these games, when the other news out today or this week is that Netflix is going to start producing games. So, we know that the games industry, and we're always banging on about it, is a massive industry. It's an influential industry. And is it okay to have this kind of attitude in behind the scenes? Is that really going to create inclusive games that help to move society to a more compassionate and inclusive one? Floor.
I think having read his comments, he quickly came back and said, to prevent tension from becoming negative, or to address it if it does, that's where strong policies, values, and corresponding procedures are essential. So clearly what happened is some fucking moron who is probably fired now let him go in front of do an interview, because this perspective, he's clearly just an out of touch CEO person who has no idea, just lives in this bubble where everything's completely fine, and if there's trouble, then try things.
It's just what happens. It's just what happens.
Trouble just happens. So you just think he's out of touch, and that speaks to the because there are cutthroat capitalists who run Disney, who are nailed down on absolutely everything, and they would never let someone like him talk to the public. And then there are people like him who are that high level, who just haven't got a clue what's going on. The progress of society is completely outside of their bubble. Their world is exactly the same as it has been. He looks like he's in his 50s or 60s. His entire career, definitely. Yeah. So he's coming forward and he thinks 20 years ago, probably even 10 years ago, that response would have been
fine.
That would be the tradition, the official response, that everything would have been fine. But the difference now is that media, the industry of media, the people have seized the means of production. So now, instead of, because you can't rely on establishment media to call people like him out on this, because they are the same people as that ruling class of people. So they don't know. But then Twitter comes up and goes, "What did you say?" And all these young people going, "We're not stupid. We have eyes and ears. We know what you're trying to say. Oh, everyone's at fault." And that is both siding things, and that's the same with culture war related. It's suggesting that, I don't know, it's just both sides fighting, and they need to just be polite to each other, and that's the answer.
I think it's very dismissive what he said, and it gives the air of trying to sweep it under the carpet and move along as quickly as possible, really. And it's clearly not that. And I think it's probably very difficult and very hurtful for a lot of people to hear, especially those that may or may not have been involved in what's been happening at Ubisoft. But I don't want to speculate, obviously, because it's all alleged at the moment. But yeah, you can just imagine what people think when they hear that sort of thing coming out of the mouth of the CEO. But then I find most CEOs are generally out of touch anyway.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel that, he's saying, people need to be able to have heated discussions. People need to be able to explore topics that may be uncomfortable, or issues that may be uncomfortable, in order to get the best out of the process and the design process. And do you feel that there is any truth in that? Or how do you make these scenarios safe? I suppose I'm thinking, after the Me Too thing in Hollywood, we didn't drop sex scenes from movies. What we did was bring in consultants to help support and make sure that everyone in those scenes was comfortable and safe, and people were mindful about those issues. So do we feel that that the issue isn't that things are being said, it's that maybe there's just an abandonment of, people can behave the way they want?
It comes down to what kind of safeguarding is happening, and the awareness that people within Ubisoft have of safeguarding, and various types of abuse that could happen, and just learning to identify when things are stepping over the line, or when there might be concerns with colleagues or various other things. So it could be a workplace culture thing where there's just like either complete ignorance or like choosing to ignore, or just like a complete lack of awareness of like how to keep things safe and how to keep an eye out for people, and when things might be going wrong or stepping over the line, or where there are concerns that need to be identified. But that's fairly, I know it sounds boring and all about policy and procedure, but at the end of the day, that's what keeps everyone, or at least helps to keep everyone safe.
But you can't even begin to implement or put in policies if you're not conscious that these things might make people uncomfortable,
that there's a problem,
that they might be problematic. Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely.
So it's the whole thing. I think general awareness of what all these things are and what they mean to different people is really important.
I think it comes back to that at his like high level, in his world, everyone's powerful and wealthy, and he thinks, if someone has a problem with me, I won't take it personally. And you think, why would anyone else? People can have disagreements, but that people like him can't make decisions about people outside of his bubble, because whenever you say, oh, this relationship needs to be this, you need to be able to have friction and heated discussions. You need to make that place safe and equal. Yeah. And if you don't change anything in your workplace that is just the way things are in society, there is profound power imbalances in society, and those just move straight into the workplace. So there's no amount of... It's tricky because I'm of the opinion that culture always overpowers policy, because say, like, look at the Metropolitan Police in London. They're supposed to be protect and serve, keep people safe, and yet they have this horrifying, just rogue agency-like behaviour where they ignore powerful people breaking the law, and they brutalise women and ignore women and brutalise black people and minorities because it's the culture. And the people in charge, they're supposed to be the referees, and so they're supposed to be the ones enforcing the rules and the regulations and the safeguarding, saying the people we care about are the people who are vulnerable, rather than going, if you say, oh, I'm not going to take sides, you're taking the side of the people who have the most power imbued with them already. And that is always men in society in general. So say, for example, going out dating, for example, why don't they just say, oh, why don't women just say no? Because it's not an equal. They're not
exactly.
They're just,
there's a lot of pressure,
women have to change their behaviour. It's the illusion of equality.
It's not enough to... Sorry, Alex.
So right now, I was just going to say, an interesting thing about safeguarding is also that it's not necessarily that these things aren't being noticed. They might be being noticed, but when it comes to actually reporting them, there's a lot of barriers in the way as well. Like, there could be concerns about the person getting in trouble for reporting it, or just like not knowing how to, not knowing whether it will impact on all sorts of different things, really. There's all sorts of things that present themselves as barriers to actually following through with these procedures. And also, like, you might be worried about not being listened to, not being believed, especially if you're a woman reporting to a man, for example. Like, there's all sorts of different scenarios in which there are barriers that exist or have the potential to exist in an unhealthy workplace culture.
I think you're absolutely right, Matt, about the interplay between culture and policy. I think that, you know, in order to see genuine change, it has to be a culture shift that has to happen. But policy is one of the things that can help to shift that dial if it's properly managed, as you're saying, Alex. You know, like, there has to be, you have to believe that if you report a problem, you know, it's going to get properly handled, and you are going to be safe in that process. And I think, you know, this is why increasingly I'm of the opinion, you know, it's not good enough to simply not be sexist or not be racist. You have to be anti-racist and anti-sexist. You know, you have to be proactively pushing in the opposite direction, because it's not enough to, as you said, Matt, it's not enough to just sort of say, I'm not taking sides, because, you know, that is the same as, you know, not getting involved. It's allowing you are supporting something by the absence of pushing back against it. And so I think, you know, from my personal perspective, in my personal journey through all of these issues, has become much more about being proactively against these things, and actually doing as much as I can to influence society and influence the people around me. And that's really quite challenging a lot of the time, because then you become that woman who's always raising those things and making people think about stuff. But luckily I'm surrounded by a lot of those people, and, you know, and so I'm just one of many who's always got an opinion about something. But I think it's interesting because Xbox is launching, this was another news thing that came up today. Xbox is launching Project Amplify, which is that they're trying to address the lack of diversity and lack of Black developers in the games industry. And I think that was making me think, you know, that if these situations, you know, if there is this sort of attitude that, like, well, we've got to be able to talk about this stuff, and you've got to be all right, because that's part of the creative process, and we don't really have a problem. It's just a few people are a bit oversensitive, and, well, they can always go to HR, and these whole kind of attitudes coming down from the top. It's not going to make these environments very. I mean, you know, we talked last time about, you know, do these things make women want to play these games, want to be involved in making these games? And I think it's the same in this. It's not going to make people want to move into these industries if you've got this sort of these attitudes that, like, oh, you got to get over it. And then, you know, as a woman, as a Black person, you know, whatever, you're going to go into these things and say, actually, no, I don't. There are other jobs I can do where I don't have to go in and have a fight every day. You know, I don't have to deal with microaggressions and all of that.
That's partially why I'm cautiously optimistic about the future, because, like you say, companies, massive corporations, are realizing that there's money to be made in taking a proactive anti something bad stance. So, like the NFL, for example, when Colin Kaepernick first took a knee to draw attention to Black Lives Matter, he is still completely blacklisted from the NFL. but now almost all the NFL players have something like End Racism or even Black Lives Matter on their helmets. It's on the pitches. They're realizing that we can make a lot of money by stances, and hopefully they're going to drown in the positive environment that they create. Because whereas in the past it would just be a woman, you have to do a sex scene and you get pressured into doing it. Now then, hopefully over the last very unfortunately short period of time, that is not being seen as an acceptable thing to say to an actress. And they have to come out and say, oh, we're proactively against these things. And they're hopefully painting themselves into a corner by following the money. Because if you've got Black Lives Matter, there was an NFL coach who was recorded referring to I think it was his own players as N-words, and that was recorded, and he was fired. If that had been So he probably would have just carried on as it was. So the matrix of acceptable behavior is shrinking. But the people at the very top, they're still in that bubble, and people like him, who I imagine they protect him from the knowledge that there are black people in games. They protect them so that eventually it'll just reach up to them, and then things crossed.
I mean, the Microsoft research, or some research that they've done as part of this new sort of drive, they found that only 2% of professionals in the video game industry are black, which compares to the US population, which is 13%. So, it's considerably lower. So it clearly is not, they're not spaces that are encouraging people to go in, to move into those industries. But I agree with you, Matt, and I think that things are definitely changing and societal attitudes are changing, and I think that's why we see such a kickback against the sort of woke idea, because it's winning, and it is actually making progress. I mean, only yesterday we saw today we've seen one of the Labour MPs have lost the whip because of a racist comment that she made about Kwasi Kwarteng in a fringe meeting yesterday, and she's apologized profusely for that, but it was extremely quick, and it was racist what she'd said, it's good to see that, and it's good that people need to see that if you say these things, that there will be consequences. So I think
it's getting harder to be I was just going to say it's being harder to be a casual dickhead now, because say mental health, for example. Now, in the past, you've said, I'm feeling particularly a boy, or especially a man, saying, I'm feeling a bit worried and sad. Most of male people would go, oh, you're being pathetic. You're being a girl, being all sad. Whereas now, if you've got a group of 5 guys and one of them says that, if one of them said what they would have said 10, 15 years ago, most likely 3 out of the 4 would turn and go, what the fuck is wrong with you? It's being so much more. People can go, what the fuck is wrong with you? And trust that the majority of people will probably go, dude, that was fucked up, mate.
Yeah.
And we can move on from there, rather than being in a world full of the people who are being all angry and scared that they're being called out for their behaviour.
So, I mean, we can feel, I suppose, maybe a little bit of positivity in that Rockstar's like secret mini game was from, goes back to 2004, and hopefully they've learned some lessons. I haven't gone through the whole timeline of their bad behavior, so maybe I'd learn something different if I did that. And but we are at least seeing Microsoft sort of stepping up and saying, actually, we need to be proactively tackling this issue, and that makes people like the Ubisoft CEO seem a little bit out of touch, as you said, and maybe he's going to have and obviously he did, he came out, he said these things, and somebody's taken him to one side and said, look, mate, we can't do that anymore, and he's released a sort of kind of tried to backtrack and explain it. Oh, you just didn't understand me. But at least he's had to do that. So, that is happening. So perhaps there's a bit of, bottom up stuff going on, as well as this sort of top down crappy attitudes. And these people will be moving out of the industry, and the new generations moving up. So maybe there is hope for the
movement. Yeah.
For the movement, for the games industry in general.
There is unfortunately social and economic things. Socially, things are getting better. Economically, I think it's going to get
down the
it's going to get it's going to be a tough few decades.
I know.
I think I'm going to have to get a tattoo of that.
So we've got a few minutes left, but what would is there anything that anyone would like to add that they feel we haven't covered today?
It made me think of the whistleblowing in general, because sharing information that isn't supposed to be shared or isn't allowed to be shared, whether for good or evil, with games, that it doesn't matter. It's just unfortunate for the company. It doesn't matter. But when it's for a company like Uber, that is where whistleblowing is profoundly important. Corporations and governments, they need to. That's where whistleblowing is most vital, but it is also one of those third rail things that corporation governments will never like support. Just for example, Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, they revealed horrifying things that the US military did, and they're still trying to destroy him. So that's the opposite end of, well, socially things are getting better, but on the economic and political side, they'll say, oh, we can have black people in our game, but we won't let you tell the world that we committed war crimes.
Yeah.
That's going to be those points coming together, seeing if the social side can eventually drown out that side. But I think we've got a while to go yet.
And that's about power balance as well, isn't it? I mean, the games industry is a powerful and financially lucrative industry, but it is just an industry. And, there's a big difference between sharing that information and when you're sharing information, like you say, about war crimes or industries like committing crimes effectively against their staff or whatever, if that's the sort of things that you're you're releasing, then you're going to hit a much stronger wall, I think, in response to that. So it does come down to power, as these things always do. And I think it's it'd be interesting to see how the financial crisis impact on that power balance as well. Actually, so, I always think about the film Ants or the Bug's Life. Is it a Bug's Life when one of those two anyway, where they're all scared of the grasshoppers.
That's Bug's Life. Yeah, that takes me back.
And I think it's such an important thing that it and this is why they're constantly saying that the police govern us by consensus. We as a society, we agree to listen to and abide by their rules, or let them tell us what we can and can't do. And so there is a social contract there that and when you start breaking it, as I would argue the government in the UK is doing right now, when you start breaking that agreement, then all bets are off, aren't they? And I think
so we the younger people, I think the young people in particular, we've been told follow the rules and everything will be fine, and we're finding out the rude awakening of, all that time they were telling us to follow the rules, it was just to stop us realizing how much they're robbing us and robbing us of our future. And another thing that, if it had happened 20 years ago, it would be completely positive, is that the wealth gap between the wealthiest and the rest of us is growing and growing and growing. So the amount of people in the population who hate upwards now is just going to get bigger and bigger. Whereas in recent history, I would have included myself, there was this middle class of like the buffer of going, everything's fine, we're following the rules, it'll be fine. And now that middle class is being squeezed up and up and up, and we're starting to go, hang on, has it always been like this?
Absolutely. Do you have anything else you wanted to add, Alex?
No, other than that, it's just really nice for us all to be back.
I was thinking that it's really, really nice. It's been far too long. Before we all go, I just want one positive game related snippet from you, whether it's something you're looking forward to, a success you've had in a game, a new bit of kit, whatever, just something positive to finish the episode on.
I've been playing a little game. I think it's free on PlayStation Plus for this month, so there's not much longer to get it. But it's called Toem. I think it's how you pronounce it, Toem. And it's just a really chilled, little indie game where you just go around and take pictures and solve little puzzles and do little quests, and you get to stamp your card with a stamp. And it's all very wholesome and lovely, and it's all in black and white.
Oh, wow.
Which is really cool. So if you haven't had a look and you want something really chilled out and quite short to play, then I recommend that. It's nice.
Oh, definitely have to check that out. I've been getting very excited about the new Monkey Island game, which has come out. So I played the originals way back in the olden days when they were very pixelated, and but they were awesome games and so much fun and very silly, and very excited because I'm going to download it I'm going to get it on my Switch and take it away on holiday with me in October. Nice. So I'm going on a tour around up in the Scottish Highlands. So I'm expecting some rainy evenings sat in my camper van playing on this. So yeah, that's what I'm been quite excited about that. What about you, Matt? What have you?
I've been playing Fallout 4 for quite a while now, and I've discovered a hack to basically have unlimited money, which is
well done.
you can set up communities, and you can build, turn it into like a proper community, like with you can build houses, you can have power, you can have defenses, you can have shops, you can have gardens, you can have everything.
Oh, wow.
And there's you can build, because obviously it's a nuclear apocalypse, the water isn't very clean.
No.
You can build water purifying stations. And there's if you produce more of a resource than you've got people to use it, it gets stored in your little trunk that you keep everything in. And if you've got 13 people and you set up water pumps to service 400 people, you get
a swimming pool.
You get hundreds of bottles of water that you can go and sell.
Excellent.
And it's been in fusion cores for quite a while. So that's my hack to anyone doing Fallout or in the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Thank you so much, guys. It's been a pleasure as always. Please check. We're doing shorter episodes at the moment because we thought we'd do more for you that way. And so please do keep an eye on our social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube.
Technically Spotify and
other ones. Spotify and iTunes,
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
The one I don't use.
Yeah. Well, has iTunes stopped now?
I don't know. Is it? I don't know.
It's been people have been unsure for 10 years.
Oh, okay. I feel like I'm in company then. Okay. Well, anyway, find us there and like us. Give us some 5 stars, 10 stars. We'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed that episode of Gaming the System. If you want to support us, you can donate to us through our PayPal by sending it to wearegamingthesystem@gmail.com if you want to send us a one-off donation. If you want to donate to us monthly, you can subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/gamingthesystem. Until next time, bye-bye.